Okay, let's talk about the ups and downs of Deliver Us Mars. I have some thoughts for sure. So I'm going to spoil Deliver Us Home, or I'm sorry, not Deliver Us Home. I'm going to spoil Deliver Us the Moon here a little bit. So Deliver Us the Moon, I thought, fell short of greatness, but I do think it was a good game. What really stood out to me about Deliver Us the Moon was not the story at all. As a matter of fact, I remembered almost none of the story from the 3 years ago I played it, and I had to look it all back up because I didn't remember. None of it stuck with me. What did stick with me was the moment-to-moment gameplay in Deliver Us the Moon. You play mostly a silent protagonist, not entirely, but a mostly silent protagonist, and you're just going into this base on the moon solving problems. It kind of reminded me of like the idea of like in The Martian, Matt Damon's character talks about like when you get a problem like that, you just gotta solve one problem at a time until you fix the big problem, right? It felt like a lot like that. It was very realistic compared to a lot of space games I've played. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed like the realism, and that it really felt like you were an astronaut that was in a crisis and you were just solving problems, trying to save yourself and fix the situation. And I really liked that part of the game, but the story I didn't care about because it was all delivered to you. You're you're a faceless protagonist. You can't even see your face in that game. And all of the story is communicated to you through these echoes, you know, that you've seen in so many video games where it's just like a hologram of people talking. And that's fine, but it wasn't that engaging, right? It didn't stick with me. I didn't remember any of it. This game makes some very drastic changes to that formula. It still has that feel of where you gotta go in and take care of these problems and solve these problems, but it's not exactly the same. It doesn't scratch that itch in exactly the same way. There's a lot of that, but there's a lot more traversal thrown in. They've added a lot of elements here. So like there's this whole like rock climbing element with your rock climbing tools that you use that wasn't in the first game at all. You do a lot of traversal like that. The puzzle solving is very similar. It's a different mechanic. The main mechanic is different, but it's a lot of the same type of puzzle solving. But it's more intense, and then the traversal and the platforming is more intense. It's more prevalent. But more importantly, the protagonist in this game is not faceless, is not voiceless. They are the most important character in the game, and most of the story is not given to you in these echoes. A little bit of it is, but most of the story is given to you in actual cutscenes where you're face to face with another character and you have some conflict that you're trying to work through. And it is a very good story. This game has an excellent story. It's excellently voiced. It's excellently written. I buy all of it. I buy all of the characters' motivations. Almost all of the characters are very complicated and have flaws, but also they're understandable flaws, and you kind of understand where people are coming from when they're doing things that aren't quite right. There's a lot of moral ambiguity in this game. There's a lot of, you see someone doing something and you're like, that's not really the right thing to do, but what else are they gonna do in that situation? You know, I understand them making that decision. There's a lot of situations like that, and that's very compelling to watch. It's really, really cool to watch. So I really, really enjoyed. I really think that the traversal and the platforming and all that stuff in this game is a step up. But more importantly, the story is a huge step up. The story is very, very memorable in this game. It's one of the better stories I think I've played in a game in a while. Like, this one's going to stick with me for a while. I really liked these characters, all of them. All of them were very, very good. So I think those are the main takeaways for as far as like, you know, what improvements were made. And it makes me really, really interested to see where the next one, Deliver Us Home, which is supposed to come out sometime in 2026, I think, is going to go from here. You know, as far as, I'm going to turn this down just a little bit more. As far as, like, drawbacks, we talked about the puzzle-solving mechanics. I think they were good. They were solid. There's no problem there. There were some little bugs and glitches. The climbing, where you have like the hooks, the rock climbing hooks, was pretty finicky at times. It was not great. The jumping mechanics were and platforming mechanics were weird. Like, it was unclear sometimes how close you had to get to a ledge before you would grab it, mantle it, and things like that. That was iffy. The game, there was a bug. I had to reload a checkpoint once. Pretty basic stuff that you're used to seeing in a modern indie game that's newer. You know, you see things like this. Nothing seriously game breaking. Nothing that was hugely. There was one point I was really annoyed because the jumping when you have to jump from one wall to another when you're climbing, it sucks. That is the one thing about this game I think that sucks, is that one mechanic, having to jump from wall to wall. It does not work very well, and it was pretty frustrating. But outside of that, I really don't have a lot of negative things to say. The graphics looked great. Well, the environmental graphics look great. The character models in this game look pretty cartoony. I'd say it's definitely got that indie feel to it, where it's like they just don't have the budget or the time or the team or some combination of that to make really good photorealistic character models. And when you're in the middle of a really intense scene with this serious conflict, and they kind of look like puppets from Thunderbirds or Team America World Police, it is a little bit of a distraction, but it's not that bad. It's fine. Graphics have never been the most important thing to me. The actual environmental graphics, like the surfaces and the actual ships and the surface of Mars and stuff like that, that all looked pretty good. But the character models were rough. Their hair, especially. Their hair is like PS3 hair. It's like big bushy eyebrows. Every strand of hair is 30 strands thick, you know, and it's like if you get the right angle, you can see where the plugs are, and they're like, everyone has like 50 strands of hair, and that's it. You know, it was a little bit of a distraction sometimes, but not too bad. Overall, I thought this was a great game, and I didn't feel that way about the first one. I think this is an incredible improvement. I'm very interested to see where it will go. Oh, well, last thing, I don't know how you overcome this, but it was a little bit of a problem. Games like some sequels like this, it's not that important that you played the first game. I didn't even know if it would be the same storyline with the same characters. It is. You need to know the story of the first game before you play this. If you don't, you will be lost. There should have been, you know what there should have been? They should have just put a recap at the beginning of the game. At the beginning of the game, right when you hit new game, it could say, there's a lot of games that do that now. They say, would you like a recap of the first game before you start the new game? Because I would have hit yes on that in a second, because I didn't remember the story at all, because it wasn't that impactful, honestly. So if that's an easy fix, you just put a previously on option at the beginning. Video games do that all the time. This game needs a recap, because there was a lot that went on, and it's very integral to the second game. So that would be my last critique. But overall, man, I really I was impressed. I enjoyed this game quite a bit more than I did. The Deliver Us to the Moon didn't rank that high. It's probably somewhere in the late 300s, early 400s. But this one will rank higher, no doubt about it. Is it going to end up in the top 100? No. It didn't completely blow me away. But, you know, I just did the story. I just did the YouTube and TikTok videos for my favorite stories of 2024. This probably would have made the top 10. I really liked the story. So 358 is where this game is ranked. So that's respectable, but this will be higher. All right, that's it. First, so that's handled. Last order of business, Deliver Us Mars. It has been an impressive time. I really have enjoyed the game, but we are now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. Bye. Appreciate ya. Much love.